So today, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and President-elect Trump all blasted the bipartisan spending deal and demands a streamlined bill. And that threw a curveball to Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, and the members of Congress, his caucus, both sides of the aisle. It really surprised them, and they weren't ready for that. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You can catch up with me across social media at Westside Jeff on Facebook, on X, and Instagram. My opinion on what happened today, and I want to continue. There's a lot of points I need to make here that I want to get to. By the way, if you want to weigh in, 800-288-9227. The things my opinion on this is a couple things. I wish I could sit here and explain this to you in a very simple, simplistic fashion. I can't. Number one, I'm not that smart. Number two, I think they make it complicated for a reason. Budgeting up on the Hill is something that I have never understood. I have never felt any Congress in recent history has been fiscally responsible. I think they all, for the most part, from what I've seen, throw a bunch of pork in there and stupid stuff. Pork barrel spending, I could talk about the things that I've seen and read across media reports about wasteful spending, but I don't want to do that. I've heard the stories about the $1,000 toilet seat, blah, 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 bridge to nowhere, all those things. I can tell you this. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. And I don't know, 30 years ago, there's a low-lying area, just like there is in every city across the country, in my hometown of Columbus. And the House of Representatives agreed to pork barrel spending and built a flood wall around that area. I grew up in the area called the Bottoms. It's a lower area around Columbus, Ohio. And there are some lower income housing around there. And they call it the 100-year flood wall. Now, I don't know about you. It's never been activated, by the way. They've never needed it up there. My opinion is, why would you invest millions and millions and millions of dollars to build a 100-year flood wall that supposedly might very well protect homes or businesses for that once in a generational, once in a lifetime flood, 100-year flood wall, rather than set aside the money to cover the devastation effects of that if and when it happens? That's the part of this stuff that doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather have a balanced budget. I'd rather full transparency. I'd rather Congress members say, you know what, I'm not going to take that money back to my district and spend it somewhere that's stupid, wasteful spending. Let's balance the budget. Let's get it under control, and let's do what's right for America. I wish I could explain it all. It's complicated as hell. It's difficult to talk about. It's hard to talk about billions and trillions of dollars. I know this. I'm just a regular guy like you are. I got a day job that I work about 55 hours a week. I make an income. I'm taking home less money than ever before because I'm paying more taxes. I'm trying to save for my future. And I'm trying to balance my budget. And mine's balanced in my house. I expect that out of my government. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You got an opinion? I want to hear it at 800-288-9227, like Lou from Denton. Lou, thanks for listening. You're on the Chris Crock Show. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Thank you for calling. What's your opinion on this?
Well, Merry Christmas and happy holiday season to you. And you're underselling yourself. I think you're doing a good job, Westside Jeff. But a few things, the balanced budget, living within our means. You're making it more complicated than it is. About 2,500 years ago, sometimes the simple things remain simple. Plato said every democracy will fail when the people in power decide they can vote themselves a raise, not meaning Congress specifically, just meaning if I can vote for you to work for me off your back, then every democracy will fail. That was his proposition. We're the longest running democracy in the world history because we have the wisest population in the world history. When everybody keeps disparaging American populations, it is entirely incorrect. As Victor David Hansen has said, the other part about the throwing the bomb in the room and seeing who's left alive, I think it's as good an analogy as anything else. If you're trying to change the course of a ocean liner, it's going to take 6, 12, 18 miles. We're 250 years old. About every 40 years, we get a good chance to kind of begin to change things. The Chevron deference case by the United States Supreme Court is huge. It's not a minor thing. It's a huge thing.
Totally agree with you.
It's going to make Congress actually have to be congressional, with grace, with force, with thought. They're going to have to begin to act as the people we elected them to do, so these kinds of things, in my opinion, what I heard today was very reasonable. And back to your other initial points why I called in is you're exactly right there too. In that the media, but you're quoting the wrong media. You're quoting the media from the last 20 years. The media is already speaking. That's why Trump and Vivek and Musk can say what they're saying, is they don't actually have the narrative that they had 20 and 40 years ago. I mean, I lived through Carter as a middle schooler and high schooler, and Reagan in high school and college, and you get a course correction every 40 years or so. I was not around World War II, or the Gilded Age, World War I, Civil War, but about every 20, 40 years you get a chance to course correct as a country, and I think this is that. I don't know Trump or anything like that. It's not a cult of personality stuff, but the media is actually more democratized right now than ever in American history. There's more diverse thought. Everybody who is truly liberal, meaning an adjective, not a noun, can go out and get different opinions, different thoughts. The idea that we just had this massive election and Biden is still president, he's a Democrat, the Senate is controlled by Democrats. Your proposition, I thought, was like the party in control. They control the levers of government. And so if they're letting somebody who's not in government, Trump or Vivek or Musk, come in and drive them, then they're the ones that need to get out and start beating the drum somewhere to get somebody to agree they're actually governing. So anyway, I thought you hit all the right points, but one of the biggest messages I thought was the legacy media legacy is not even traditional legacy, morbid. The Walking Dead media, they haven't gotten the message. It's everybody. All those analogies are still true. Everybody's fighting the last war. The former media that I totally respected in my life, I'm 59 years old, but I've totally respected in my life, is dead. They just don't know they're dead.
Lou, thank you for calling and thank you for listening. I don't totally agree with that. I got to hit a break here. On the other side of that, I'll explain it, but I don't totally agree with that. The legacy media, yeah, we can talk about them dead. They're not dead yet. They're headed that direction. Don't underestimate the power of NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. Don't underestimate their power. They're not totally dead. And don't underestimate talk radio. That's why I'm sitting here talking with you tonight. And we'll continue this conversation. I'll explain that in 3 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Talking about the events of the day, and that is Trump blasting bipartisan spending bill deal and demands a streamlined bill. President-elect floated an idea of pairing a revised legislation with raising the debt ceiling. I'm not a fan of raising the debt ceiling. I'm not saying don't ever do it. I'm just saying that can't be our go-to answer. We can't always say every time we have to do a new spending bill to keep the government open, we can't always go, well, let's raise the debt ceiling. No. How about we lower it? We need to lower it at some point in time. I say we need to get back to a balanced budget. Lou, I appreciate you calling in from Denton. Thank you very much. You made a comment about legacy media being dead. I disagree with you on that one comment. Still today, 2024, about 2/3 of Americans, 2/3 of U.S. adults, watch television news at least sometimes throughout the week. I'm not talking just NBC, ABC, CBS, the major three networks. I'm talking CNN, MSNBC, Fox, News Nation, and so on. So 2/3 of U.S. adults still watch the news at some point in time throughout the week. About 1/3 of Americans watch the news often. So legacy media, as you and I define that, is not dead yet. Might it be going in that direction? I think we're at a pivotal time in the culture of television news. I really do. This is a very pivotal time because for 4 years we've had a beat down Trump media from everywhere, by the way, including Fox. For those of you that love Tucker, let me go back to before Tucker left Fox. Those two were against each other. I can't tell you how many times I saw Tucker talk about Trump being an idiot. So don't underestimate the power of that media. Yes, social media is important. Yes, talk radio is very important. But don't underestimate the power of the media. That's my opinion. Westside Jeff. You want to weigh in? I'd love to hear your comments. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. I'm also across social media at Westside Jeff. And I'd love to tell you I have a simple solution to a complex problem. I don't. I'd love to tell you I'm a real smart guy. I'm not. I'd love to tell you I'm well-read and educated in all things economic. I'm not. I know the economy. I dumb it down. I just dumb it down, regular kind of guy. The economy is a lot of levers. When you raise this lever, this one, you have unintended consequences. So it's not as simple as do this and do that. It just isn't, because it's fluid, and that makes it difficult. That's where you've got to manage things economically in a very fluid situation. And that makes it even more difficult for Congress and the president and the Treasury Secretary and the Fed. Now, budgeting up on the Hill is something I've never really understood. I challenge you. I don't know anybody I've ever talked to that I can look back in the rears and say, you know what, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, Congress passed this budget. What did it mean? How did it impact you? You don't know. I don't know. You don't. You don't. Superstar economists, yes, maybe they get paid to do that. I just know this. My common sense is this. I got to balance my checkbook, and if I don't, I have to file bankruptcy, and there's consequences. I want my federal government to do the same. That means spend less, be responsible. I love the whole Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, Doge element. I love outside resources to put common sense in there. But this president, Trump, is going to need the media to get his message out. He's going to need, and when I say the media, he's going to need newscast. He's going to need ABC, CBS, NBC to convey his message. He's going to need Fox. He's going to need social media. And he can't just talk to the choir. He's got to talk to the country. But the interesting thing today is he deep-sixed Mike Johnson. Listen, if you don't like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, I don't care if you like him or not, but we need a strong Speaker of the House. We need a strong Senate president. We need them to be in lockstep with the president, and they need to be on one track going the right direction. Because when you get government going in multiple directions is when you get chaos. And when you get chaos, that's not good. I just know that in my lifetime, I've seen all kinds of pork spending across this country that I look at and go, it's stupid. I can't tell you this, all the pork spending here in North Texas. I can just tell you I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. It was 30 years ago or so. They did pork spending and built a flood wall around the area, downtown Columbus area, to protect from the quote-unquote 100-year flood. Listen, in the next 500 years, we're not going to get that kind of rain that's going to flood that much. And if we ever do, something tells me the amount of money that they spent on that flood wall 30 years ago, they could have invested and banked on it as an insurance policy to cover some of the losses. Quit spending my money. Be responsible. Do the right things. I think Trump and the Congress have got to get together. They got to get a unified message, because today it made them look like idiots, unless that was orchestrated specifically. But when Mike Johnson gets with the House and they agree on stuff on the Republican side of the aisle, and they get the Democrats to agree, and they get ready to do it, and Trump says, no, throw it out, throws a grenade in the room, shuts the door, blows it up, opens the door and says, go back and do it again. That's not productive. Unless that was an orchestrated effort, but I don't think it was. I just think it's a complicated thing. That's what happened today. We'll continue this conversation. I got to hit bottom of the hour news. We got Mickey Briggs coming up in the newsroom with an update on that. I want to share my thoughts on exactly the Doge thing with Musk, with Ramaswamy, and President Trump, and how that plays out to the other branches of government. I'm talking John Thune, who's going to be Senate president, and I'm talking about Mike Johnson, who's currently the Speaker of the House. We need them to all be in the same room, on the same hymnal, and speaking from the same place. Because otherwise it makes us look like idiots, and it hurts our cause in the next election. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. The name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Chris will be back in 2 weeks, January 2nd, Thursday night. He's been taking vacation time. He also has been filling in earlier in the day for Casey, who's taking vacation time. So that gives me the chance to sit here and fill in for Chris at night. Again, Jeff is the name, Westside Jeff. Born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. You can hit me up across social media on Facebook, on X, and Instagram at Westside Jeff. Talking about what I do is I just talk about common sense opinion on current events. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Just grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Went to a public schools. Went to college an hour and a half southeast of Columbus, Ohio. Got in the business, been in radio, traveled around the country, and here I am sitting in Chris Crock's chair on WBAP. I just get a chance to give my common sense opinion. That's all I do. I watch the news, I read the news, I have an opinion. I watch CNN, yes, I do. I watch MSNBC a little bit. I watch News Nation, Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC. I want to hear what all of them are saying, because I don't trust any of them necessarily, including Fox. I read a bunch of stories. I put all that information in my little nugget that I have. It's a little one, by the way. And I come up with an opinion. I analyze it, and I get to give you my thoughts on what I see, how I see it. And then I get a chance to have you share your opinion. Today, or late last night, a bipartisan budget, stopgap spending budget was agreed upon conceptually with Republicans and Democrats in the House. Today, Elon Musk come out and said it's trash. It's crap. Don't sign it. Horrible. Go back to the table. He and Trump talked today. Trump agreed. Vivek Ramaswamy agreed. The stopgap bill that was released late last night came out this morning, 1,547 pages. Now, I contend I'm not so sure anybody in Congress read 1,547 pages before they started commenting on it. And even if they did read it, I don't know they can totally understand it. I've read those things a little bit. Now, again, not the smartest guy in the world. Boy, when I read that stuff, I got to turn life off. I got to really dig in, read it out loud a couple times, and process what it's saying, because it's hard to understand. And if I can't understand, I'm sure they can't all understand. Elon Musk, who is set to run a cost-cutting effort under Trump, his administration, joined earlier today and piled on the Republicans and Democrats and said, no, this bill should not pass. Whoever votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out of office in 2 years. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries today warned Republicans against backing out of the deal, because they had a deal. They agreed on a deal and a handshake. He said, don't back out of it. Jeffries went on to say House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government. So he's blaming us. House Speaker Jeffries is taking the position of a victim. Why? We agreed on this with the Republicans, and they reneged on the deal, and they are going to force the shutdown of the government because of two guys that were never elected, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy. They're holding Americans hostage. That's what they'll say. They're victims. He said House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government. You break the bipartisan agreement, you own the consequences that follow. If you follow back government, there are 4 times government shut down in history. And all 4 times, the following election, the party in power paid a price for it. I don't think I want to pay that price. Listen, Trump is about a month away from inauguration. He needs to get into office, and we need to be unified on the Republican Party and the conservative front on our agenda. We need to go in there and be unified. And today's events put a black eye on that. Today's events don't help that unification. Today's events make the party weaker. And today's events give the Democrats even more fodder in the national talking heads and the national media to beat on Republicans. Now, Trump's insistence on a debt ceiling increase took lawmakers by surprise today. In the last fight over the debt ceiling, the cap was suspended through January 1st, 2025. That's another 2 weeks. But because of special measures the Treasury can take when it hits the deadline, and because of tax revenue coming in the spring, Congress wouldn't need to address that limit at all until later in the year. The Democrats said Republicans had never mentioned the debt ceiling in the stopgap talks. Now, the episode what happened today could present a new dynamic for Republicans next year, as Elon Musk and other Trump allies hover over the party's ambitious legislative agenda. Again, we need to go in on January 21st and 22nd with a strong majority and a unified party. And this doesn't help that cause. GOP detractors today complained that Speaker Johnson conceded too much in talks with Democrats and allowed a bill intended as a simple stopgap measure to be crammed with unrelated provisions. Critics also complained that there isn't enough time for lawmakers to review such a massive bill because it runs out at midnight Friday night. They're right on that. Now, here's why it's a problem. Speaker Mike Johnson, is in a really tough position. He's from Louisiana. He's a Republican. He took over Speaker of the House after the Republican hardliners engineered the ouster of his predecessor, former Representative Kevin McCarthy from California. They were furious that he had worked with Democrats to avert another government shutdown last year. Already some lawmakers are indicating They may not back Speaker Johnson. That doesn't help our party. That doesn't help the unification of our agenda. That does not help us get done what you and I voted for Trump to do. Republicans have struggled for the past 2 years to pass major funding bills, and it makes us look like fools. It makes us look like asses. With both McCarthy and Johnson heavily dependent on Democratic votes. That's the reality of what we live in. The GOP majority in the House currently stands at 219 Republicans, 211 Democrats. We get a 7 margin lead. But in the wake of November election, the Republicans' lead will be less than 7. It'll likely look like 219 to 215 on day one of the Congress. We need to be unified. Today's events don't help it. My argument is this. Number one, I want to move towards a balanced budget. I'm tired of printing money because that means my spending power goes down. Number two, the Republicans better get together. They got 2 years of owning the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And if they screw this up, which they could very well do, we're going to lose it in 2 years. And if they get it right, we could win even more in 2 years. Every 2 years is election. Every 2 years there could be a change. And depending on what they do over the next several weeks and months, they're going to screw it up or they're going to fix it. And they better get it right. Pork barrel spending's got to end. Somebody's got to stand up and say, no, we're not going to spend money on that crap. We're going to do the right thing for American workers, for American households, for American families, and American companies. We're going to reinvest in America and make America great again. I want to continue this conversation in about 3.5 minutes. You want to weigh in? I want to hear your opinion at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I just give you common sense opinion on current events, and my name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. I spent about an hour on the phone earlier today with a woman named Kayla Sollers. She's a mom, 3 children, married, lives here in Collin County, has a special needs son that went to McKinney schools. And I was mortified by what I heard from her. I had found out about her from a caller I had earlier in the week, or a couple callers, as I talk about education. I'm going to talk about education after the top of the hour, because our educational system needs a fundamental reboot. Kids coming out of school unprepared. High schools have become pre-college educational institutions, and not everyone is meant for college. And administrators in some school systems are not doing the right things. They're not accountable. They're not transparent. And they're more interested in their careers than the careers of the students that they are teaching. I love talking education because I'm a product of it. I'll talk about it after the top of the hour. Give me 15 minutes. Also in the news today, story about the Supreme Court to consider TikTok ban. The Supreme Court today, late today, said it would decide the constitutionality of the law that would effectively ban TikTok in the U.S. if the social media app doesn't shed its Chinese ownership. Let's go back to the budget plan today. Part of the budget plan that Congress was introducing was funding to reinvest in China. Why are we investing in China? Again, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. My name is Jeff, Westside Jeff. Why would we invest in China when we also are litigating a case to try to get China to divest of TikTok? Isn't that an oxymoron? Aren't those competing forces? Again, today, the Supreme Court said it would decide the constitutionality of the law that would effectively ban TikTok in the U.S. With the ban set to take January 19th, the court scheduled fast-track oral arguments for January 10th on whether the law violates the First Amendment. Now, the justice's move, which comes 2 days after TikTok and a group of content creators sought their intervention, it puts new life into that challenge and challenges the prospect of that ruling. Now, Congress enacted the ban earlier this year with bipartisan support in response to concerns that, and this is my favorite part, they say that TikTok was a threat to national security. My question is, what's the threat? I don't like somebody just telling me there's a threat to national security without the details. If you're going to threaten me and tell me there's a threat, then tell me what it is. Because it's interesting, ever since this whole ban to TikTok thing happened, TikTok's grown. It's gotten more popular. It's gotten more legs. In fact, we just went through a presidential election where both sides, both candidates one effectively used TikTok to get elected. The other one used TikTok also. Now, lawmakers received classified briefings in which intelligence officials warned that China could use the app, one of the most widely used social media apps and a popular news source, to spread Chinese propaganda and surveil Americans. Now, if that's our national threat, if it's a national threat for China to spread Chinese propaganda and surveil Americans, then the Democratic Party is a threat. The DOJ is a threat to national security. The FBI is a threat to national security, because that's exactly what they've done to anybody associated with Donald Trump. And oh, by the way, if we're going to ban TikTok, I've talked about this a couple times this week. My 2 cents worth, my opinion is, then you need to ban iPhones, because iPhones are manufactured in China. Then you need to ban HP printers because they're manufactured in China. We need to ban Dell computers because they're manufactured in China. We need to ban Xboxes because they're manufactured in China. So if China's a threat for propagandizing our country, Americans, if China's a threat in a world and an environment where we have freedom of speech, where anybody can post whatever they want on social media, not just TikTok, you can do it on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, Truth Social, you name it. If China's a real threat to propaganda, to freedom of speech, then isn't China a threat in manufacturing some of the most popular products that we buy? You see, I contend that the government, I got to ask the question. I don't know the answer to this, but it's a rhetorical question. If China's a real threat, if the government comes out and tells us China's a real threat, is it possible in the last 4 years that the government's been telling us TikTok is a threat? Is it possible that the threat of TikTok isn't really about propaganda from China? That maybe it's a threat in propaganda because it might have helped Donald Trump win re-election, and it did. I question and I ask, I want to know, what the hell is a national security threat with TikTok? I'm not on TikTok. I'm not a user. I don't use it. But I know millions of people do. And I want to know what the threat is. If you're going to get rid of it, I need to know what the threat is. That's going to be an interesting case to watch. I encourage you to continue to watch it. Top of the hour news got a hit in 3 minutes. On the other side of it, I want to talk education. Our educational system is fundamentally broken. We need to break it, split it up, and do something different because it ain't working right now. I'll explain that after the top of the hour.